Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 208 of the On Air Advocate. Where at the On Air Advocate, we look to provide education, support, and empowerment for all of those with different abilities, mental and medical illnesses, and their caregivers. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Tammy Flynn, and I am the host and producer of the On Air Advocate. And I am super excited if you are here this evening joining us or whether you're catching this on the replay. Now, as always, if you think any of the content that we are talking about today could be relevant for anyone in your network or your circle, please hit the share button and share the love with others. Well, as you guys know, we are in our Minority Mental Health Awareness series right now for the month of July. And I am so excited to have here with me tonight Dr. Joanne. She is a licensed professional counselor, speaker, a mental health advocate, as well as advocate. Hello, Joanne. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me here tonight.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you here. And as we were diving into, hopping online, we realized that I have a thunderstorm going on here, a little bit of delay between the two of us. So we might pause for a minute, but know that we're gonna try to keep it rolling as smoothly as possible. So Joanne, I would love for you to share with the audience, you haven't been on the show before, a little bit about you and your background before we dive into Mental Health Awareness Month.
Okay, good. So I'll talk about my background first, personal and then professional. So personally, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, by parents from the Caribbean islands, specifically Trinidad and Tobago. So I am first generation American, and I have other parts of Caribbean islands that my family's from. So my grandfather was from Barbados, a grandmother was from Grenada, my great grandmother was from St. Lucia. So then I grew up in New York, but I went to high school in Piscataway, New Jersey. And from Piscataway, New Jersey, I left and I went to school in Baltimore, Maryland. I went to Morgan State University in Baltimore, Maryland. And from then, actually beginning in high school was when I took a love to just counseling or psychology. I didn't know what it stood for. Right. So when I was a senior in high school, I took a psychology 101 class and I loved it. And then I've seen, people around me deal with mental health issues. So I decided to just stay education wise. And so from then on, I received my bachelor's in psychology from Morgan State University, my master's in counseling psychology from the University of Baltimore, and my doctorate degree is in rehabilitation counseling from George Washington University. Part of that journey, I was a university professor for several years. I also served as the director of training, in which I help other students become experts in counseling and dealing with people. And then eventually I went into private practice. And so I'm in private practice full-time right now. I also am the executive director of a nonprofit called the H.O.P.E Center of Carmody Hills, which is located in Seat Pleasant, Maryland. And I help open a counseling center inside of a Baptist church, Carmody Hills Baptist Church. So that's who I am personally and professionally, and kind of tie it all together.
I love it. When they say well-rounded, you are very well-rounded. You have seen so many things and so many experiences. I know that when me and you chatted on the phone, that was something that we spoke about, is that just from being in different areas and, traveling and living in different places, the different things that you have experienced, to be able to share, and pass on is just amazing. So I thank you so much, Dr. Joanne, for being here with us tonight. And I know that right now is a very, very heavy time for everyone, I feel like across the world, as well as here in the United States. And when we talk about mental health awareness as a whole, mental wellness, Minority Mental Health Awareness Month, Black Mental Health Matters, I know that's something that we spoke about, as we kind of dive into that, what have you seen with all that is going on in this heaviness in your own practice, and with, your own clients and just in your own environments, from the churches, I'm saying, that you serve, to in the clinical setting, that people are really dealing with right now?
Definitely. Well, before the pandemic, and I call it pre-corona times, the things that I would see was basic things like financial issues, relationship issues. People have personal goals, maybe to buy a home, maybe to get out of a relationship. But for the most part, I specialize in dealing with anxiety and depression, and that can be throughout groups of people or people, all genders, races. But during pandemic, in which we still are, all of those issues have enhanced. And I'm also seeing really much more serious issues in terms of um, gun violence, police brutality, people being affected and infected with COVID-19. And so all of that is a lot different. The other thing, too, that's different about this and unique is that I'm also experiencing living through a pandemic with my clients. So normally we talk about that, a lot of times what clients are going through, we either went through it or it's not that much of an issue because it's their scenario. But in this case, unprecedented time, all mental health providers, we can relate because we're in this together as well.
Right. You guys are experiencing it. I know that we had discussed a lot too about loss. I mean, during this time, people, yes, are getting infected. That's affecting their whole family, their surroundings, the people that they are around, but people are dying from this as well. So on top of that, it is the mourning. And I know I had heard one person in their family and relation had lost like up to 16 people. I
Yes.
mean, it's so significant.
Definitely, definitely. And I think also, when you talk about loss, you reminded me of the stages of grief. There's five, and we are all grieving. And when I say we, I mean, I'm talking globally across the world. So what that means is that we have all lost something. So whether it is we lost family members, a friend, a neighbor, or loss of employment, loss of housing, loss of our ability to engage in self-care like most people were doing, like going to the gym, getting their hair done, their nails done. We've lost a lot of freedom. And so as you talk about grief, that's what it reminded me of. And everyone has lost something. Even though there are good things as well that is coming up because of the pandemic and other issues that we're also living in.
Right.
So that is from systemic racism, social justice movement, gun violence, police brutality. So there's a lot that we're seeing unfolding week by week. Some of this relates to politics, some of it relates to finances. So it really is a lot that's happening all on variety of layers for each individual.
And how would you say, and I know that we didn't even discuss this on the phone, but just you bringing that up, I feel like because it is so heavy, I feel like we all are kind of living in this emotional state, where our just emotions are high about everything. Is there something that you ever in during this pandemic time have talked to your clients about, or strategies with dealing with that emotion? Because sometimes, how I always say that in business, at least, like, check yourself, like, what I'm saying, are you being emotional about this? Are you moving forward the right way? Because a lot of times when we go on emotion, we don't always make the right decision because we're festering off of that. Is there any recommendations that, as you've seen all of these emotions flying high, that you have?
Definitely, definitely. So some of the strategies, number one, and remember too, some of these strategies I'm talking about works for me personally and professionally as well. But number one, kind of living day to day. So yes, it's good to plan, and plan about a week out and your daily schedule, especially if you're fortunate to have a job and you have some schedule. But living day to day is where we're not too far in the future, well, with plans, whether it's traveling or it is kids returning to school or even going back to work, because it's hard to plan so far, right? Because people that are planning and they're getting like, yes, this is what I'm going to do, this is how this is going to work, it's disappointing to pay attention to the news and read articles and newspaper and even have conversations and realizing like, oh, I might not be able to do that or go here, or even I'm afraid to, right? So a lot of people are afraid to kind of live, right? Because if they live too much, they can get sick. People are concerned about being judged on their choices.
Mhm.
So that's one tip, is kind of living day to day, right? And in the living, that means to live. So to live means that we should be getting up at a certain time, have well rested body functions. We should take showers. We should get dressed. We should have some type of a schedule. We should engage in other self-care things like prayer, meditation, exercise, staying connected with friends and family in the best way that you can. Those are other strategies. And I would say those are the two that I talk to people about the most. Because on one hand, people are living in anxiety. What if this happens? And what if that happens? And also fear and depression. That is what we're living in. Another thing that I just thought about is paying attention to our consumption of negativity. So that could be whether it's negativity on television, the news, any social media, or even people that are negative, that'll make you concerned and worried. So we have to kind of balance all of those things.
Finding a balance. If anybody is watching this tonight right now, or if you're catching on the replay, balance and going day to day, but still, as you said, being, put it in the comments for us, please. But still staying active, still getting dressed, still showering, still getting up. But I know that for so many that are planners, and all I've heard today on the news is all about back to school. And I just can't even imagine, my kids are no longer in school. But for a parent, you have no idea what's to come. And if you live in that space where you let that feed your anxiety and stress.
Definitely. I like what you said about the planners, because I notice on one hand, some people that's having a hard time adjusting are the planners, right? Because the planners are sharp. They are good at what they do. They are on point with their job, organizations that they volunteer for and work for. But this is a different time. It's unprecedented, where it really is hard to plan too far in advance. And I also would question, at this moment, is it healthy and well for an individual to plan? So I think that is an individual question and response. And so if it is healthy for you to be a planner, then yeah, you should, right? But if it's not healthy, and it's probably a little more safer to, have a schedule and be in the moment and live day to day. But the key is to continue living. That is the key.
Right. Whether you're taking it day by day or week by week, but because it's very stressful, as we can't really, any of us can't really see over this mountain right now. You know what I mean? Like it's there, but we're really not sure how it's all going to, that can just derive so much stress.
Definitely. And even saying that, I ask people, so tell me, what do you think? What do you think in terms of politics? What do you think in terms of returning back to school or returning back to work? Because I do want them to talk it out, but ultimately people do say, well, Dad, you know what? I really don't know, right? But we do have to have a sense of talking, planning.
Right. And sometimes don't you find that when individuals come to you and they talk it through, right? They just talk through their ideas. They feel relief in the sense that now at least they've armed themselves with like a list of possible ideas, right? I mean, so if this happens, maybe this, where you're actually just speaking through it with someone can sometimes
Definitely. That is the power of talking and conversations. The power is, if you're going through anything, and a lot of people are going through multiple things, when you just talk about it to a friend, a family member, even a stranger or professional, you feel better afterwards. And even if nothing has changed, it just feels better that you had a chance to kind of get that off your chest. You had a chance to listen to yourself. Someone else had a chance to listen to you uninterrupted, and maybe sometimes some ideas and thoughts and tips come up from just sharing.
Right. Definitely. And I know that when we spoke on the phone, I mean, there are so many things that you do. Like I told you, we could make it into 5 different segments of talking about different things. But obviously, the core of this is we're focusing on minority mental health awareness. And I know you said that, you really, really want to give so many different tools and strategies and putting things out there and speaking on Black mental health matters, minority mental health matters. And why, why bringing it upon that way is that because, in every different community that you live in every different, um, now it's like Tuesday. I feel like it's a Monday where I'm at a lack for words.
And that happens often. We don't know what day of the week it is sometimes, right?
um, but for every different culture, like as we spoke about, sometimes within the Black community, they're so pushed to say, well, you should be relying on your faith. You should be going to the church. You should be praying about this. And there's all these different stigmatisms, right? About things. And so that's why I know that you wanted to kind of speak to this, to kind of, alleviate those, because everyone right now needs to know they're not alone, right? And everyone
Definitely, yes.
mental wellness.
Definitely. So as you said, minority mental health matters.
Mm-hmm.
But then we also have a drive these days that hashtag Black mental health matters. So
Right.
what does that mean? That means, like you said, in certain communities, in the Black community, African American community, we are not supposed to talk about our business, especially to a stranger, or if you're dealing with something, just it's a secret, it's silent. There's some stigma to getting professional help. And so as a mental health advocate, what I'm here to say is that mental health assistance does not always have to look like finding a therapist or social worker or psychologist. It can also look like finding that friend or family member that you can talk to about every and anything, and they are non-judgmental. They will keep your information private and confidential. And I challenge everyone out there to think about who is that person in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't think of anyone because you don't trust anyone, or you've been hurt in the past, that's a lot of times in addition to when people will seek professional mental health services. So there are people in a variety of helping professions, and those are people like cosmetologists, barber, pastors, priests, a bartender. And I put them in the category of helping professions because they do help people, right? While they're providing a service, they're listening, they're guiding, they're helping. And then you also have licensed professional counselors, licensed social workers, psychologists, clinical social workers. And these are the people that you do not have that connection with. They're not your friends. This is a professional relationship where they are bound by their ethical guidelines to keep everything that you share confidential, unless you plan on hurting someone else and they have a time, a date, a place, a person, there's a plan. Then they do have to break that and a couple other things. But for the most part, many people reach out to professional counselors, and I'm here again as an advocate for that because this is what I do every day. And my schedule is booked. And also, like you mentioned earlier, I run a couple of organizations and all of our schedules are booked, but we manage to somehow serve the community. So I share that because getting mental health services is the in thing. It's been the in thing, a couple years now, but definitely more so ever these days.
Yes. And as we spoke about, finding that person that is your supportive person. But now with COVID and with this happening, so many mental health professionals have gone online where you can do telehealth.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Let me talk about telehealth. Thanks for bringing that up. So, telehealth, we went telehealth for a variety of reasons, and I'm also doing all telehealth as well. One was, if the provider accepts insurance, the insurance companies allowed us to do telehealth services. And if you don't deal with the insurance, you're for fee services. People did as well for safety reasons and a variety of reasons. But we are essential workers, so we can, we were allowed to go in an office space and work. But reading articles, the same debate as the school systems and variety of work industries, the debate is, what are we going to do as mental health professionals?
Right.
Are we going to continue to stay online and serve people remotely? And remotely serving people is video chatting, just like we're doing. And it's also on the telephone, right? Where you're not even looking at each other, you're just kind of talking. And in some cases, it's texting, where we are texting back and forth uninterrupted, and we're solving some things, we're working through some things. And so that's what telehealth looks like. So one debate is, do we stay online? Another debate is, do we go back in the office? And if we do, things to consider, social distancing in the waiting room, right? What is the space people will wait? Then when they get into your office, are you able to stay 6 feet apart? Are you able to keep on a mask while you are engaging in counseling and making sure the person you're working with is also wearing a mask? Because again, these are safety precautions. Or are people going to do a mixture of both, kind of going in face to face and online? Many clinicians, just like many people, may also have autoimmune diseases or other diseases that kind of can compromise their health. So they also have to take those things into consideration when we work with the public. So that is, the articles and kind of the talk from on the professional side. But what I can tell you is that personally, going remote, I actually was able to see even more people, because going remote, number one, cut out my commute time, going to work, doing errands back and forth. Like now I can just log in and we're there. The people that I work with enjoy it. They've gotten used to it. One of the things that's important when you're meeting with someone are body language. So interestingly enough, we can see body language, right? Even, remotely, even through a computer, but never did we think that we can do all of that as much as we are doing it now. So it works. It is safe for, both individuals in terms of health. And we still get a lot of work done. One of the things I do is give people homework, things to do, things to think about, things to journal. And they do it, they come back, we check in. So a lot of work is still able to happen, even remotely.
And I know that that is a service that you offer across the United States, in and outside of the United States, or just in the United States?
Yeah. Are you talking about the telehealth, the remote?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, it is. It's across the board, but some clinicians are still working face to face as well. So it's not everybody that's
right that is doing that, but accessible that way. But a question that I have, and as I have been really focusing in on this mental health awareness month, thinking outside of this. So I know you're in Maryland, right?
I am. I'm in Maryland and DC. Those are the physical locations of, the practices.
Right. And so in that area, are there places that, let's say, an individual doesn't have insurance, or the insurance they have doesn't cover it, or they, possibly, are homeless,
Yes.
or other poverty, living in a poverty-driven area, that they don't have the accessibility to a phone or a device to hop online to do telehealth? What do we have available?
Yeah. So
For those.
yeah, that's a good question. In the Maryland, Washington, D.C. area, there are a lot of other resources. So so for example, homeless shelters throughout, and the people that work there provides those services face to face for them. There are people who volunteer their services, licensed and unlicensed people who are trained to listen to people's issues and help them, that actually go out to the community and help people. And so there are resources out there. Now, granted, we need more. We
Okay.
definitely need more. And so even saying that, this is a plug for anybody who know that people come to them to share their experiences. They enjoy helping people, and you believe that people can change and be better. Now is the time to really start looking at the mental health profession,
Right.
because more and more we're going to need more and more. I mean, we already, don't have a lot. We definitely don't have a lot of mental health professionals that are minorities, mental health professionals that are Black or African American, and we definitely don't have enough mental health professionals that are Black men. So this is a call for all of you to consider if this is something that you're good at and you want to do.
Right. And, hoping that there are also community agencies that are maybe looking for someone to be a mentor, maybe if you're not looking to go to school for something like, that. Yeah, just the concern is that, during this time, this is such a heavy time. And I mean, if you looked at the rates right now of overdose, suicides, whatnot, I mean, it's way up. And
It
so I'm
is.
just like, I know that there are some suicide hotlines that you can call, that you can either call or you can text in a number. Do you know of any of the main mental health organizations that offer that if you just are looking for someone to talk to, that you can call?
Yeah, several. So one is NAMI, NAMI,
Okay.
NAMI, National Association or Alliance of Mental Illness. Then there's a suicide hotline, and even, calling, depending on the state and the jurisdiction, 311 services, and they'll connect. And so even us that are working, indoors and in an office or remote, we have had to access those services on behalf of other people as well. So they are out there, definitely.
Okay. Because I think that that's so important because I think sometimes people feel like they're in kind of a rock and a hard place, right? They want to get help or they know they need to talk to someone, but they're not exactly sure where to turn. And I think that as we find out more with what's going to happen with school and everything, I think this journey is far from over. This
Oh,
this
yeah.
mental health journey, and medical wellness, for parents and for kids, are also going through so much right now. Now, what about just a little bit because then we're gonna kind of wrap up. I wanted to try to stay on track a little
Yeah.
bit. Like I said, I could talk to you for hours.
And before we wrap up, I do have 5 tips that I want folks to walk away with. And that's like my last comment. So go ahead, though, with that question.
So
You
before
were
we
just
hop into that, because like I said, Dr. Joanne has so many things that we could talk about. For your faith-based organizations that you work with within the church and whatnot, what are the types of services that they provide? And do you do, or does that organization do any teaching for other churches?
Yes.
For them to get involved, because I mean, that's a great place, especially if we get to go back to church. You know what I'm saying? Or a congregation, or if they provide some stuff online, as a lot of organizations, congregations, churches have been.
Yeah, definitely. So some of the things that the Hope Center of Carmody Hills does within Carmody Hills Baptist Church, other churches as well, and even other religious affiliations. So it goes across the board. So we're doing the counseling. We're actually running a group every Saturday. It's interesting. When COVID first happened, we decided to run a group for the first 4 weeks.
Okay.
Now we're in week 16, 15 for some, and we're still running that group every Saturday. So every Saturday from 12 to 1, we pick different topics that's happening so people could come and share. So at the beginning, it was on isolation, loneliness, quarantine, stay at home orders. And now it looks like we're talking about race and racism. We're talking about protesting. People are sharing their frustrations, their thoughts. This Saturday, actually, we're talking about gun violence. And so it's a space that is, again, it's coming out of the religious community, but it's a space for anyone to come in. The other thing that we've done recently, too, is also provide a space, virtual support groups for leaders that are in religious entities. So that's pastors, priests, ministers, deacons, where they have a space for themselves on the load that they're carrying because they are carrying a heavy load, many times personally, and then also being leaders in the spiritual community. And so those are some of the things that we're doing. Today, for example, I spoke to a Catholic church that's located in Washington, D.C. I spoke to their elderly population on healthy and wellness, physical wellness during pandemic. At Carmody Hills Baptist Church, every second Sunday, we talk about a topic that relates to counseling and infusing spirituality to help people cope with whatever it is that the topic is that we speak about. There as well on Wednesdays, every Wednesday, there is a class that the seniors, the elderly can call in, and they're led through, some scripture, some prayer, and then topics that relate to mental health. So there's different populations that we also kind of hit within churches.
Now, is that right now with COVID and everything, is that online?
Everything is all online. Yes.
That is awesome. When we're off of the show, are you able to drop some of those links below in the Facebook comments?
I can,
definitely. And if
definitely.
someone doesn't live in the States, and isn't, it doesn't belong to that congregation, are they able to join in?
Oh, yes, definitely. It doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, we've had people from Philadelphia, Atlanta, Georgia, of course, different parts of Maryland, Virginia, New Jersey join in and share.
Okay. Well, that's wonderful. I mean, that covered, you know what I'm saying, all ages groups. Love it.
Let me leave you with those 5 tips. Okay. So the 5 tips, right? If we're wrapping up.
Okay.
So what I did, I came up, it's called Say Air, SAEAR. The first one is speak to someone about all that you are going through. Those are your fears, your disappointments, joys, accomplishments. We should be talking. We need to talk, right? So that's the S. The A stands for always. Look for the bright side of everything. So that means we're in a pandemic. We're dealing with police brutality. We're dealing with racism. We're dealing with gun violence. As hard as it is, we have to look at the bright side. What is coming out of this? And we got to focus on the bright side so that we don't let that negativity pull us down. The third thing, E, engage in various dimensions of your self-care. Some of those self-care dimensions are your physical self-care. How are we working out, walking, doing physical activities every day? To emotional. How are we taking care of our emotional needs in terms of our mood changes, picking which battles we choose to fight? And so those are some examples of the dimensions of self-care. The fourth thing is A, adjust. Adjust to the changes that life brings. Every day there are changes. Every week there's some kind of change that we're dealing to. How do you adjust? The sooner we can adjust and the better we can adjust will be the healthier that we will stay once we can adjust to those changes. And then the last thing, the R, is recognize the stages of grief that you are in. Once again, we are all in stages of grief, right? But these are the stages. And which one are you in? Denial, that's not happening. Angry, I'm upset. I'm so angry that I'm going to hurt someone or myself. I'm really upset. Bargaining, if this happened, then I'll do this. Depression, this is so horrible that I'm sad. I feel lonely. I feel hopeless. Or acceptance. Acceptance is when we accept the state we're in, the condition we're in terms of, okay, pandemic, what's going to happen, when we accept it. And those are the stages of grief that we should recognize. Which one am I in? The thing about it too is those stages change, right? So we're not always angry. We're not always bargaining. We're not always accepting. So keep an eye on that change, that cycle for you personally. So those are the 5 tips that I wanted to leave everyone with this evening.
I love it. And in the comments, they want you to drop those in the comments below. So when we're off of the show, it will be on the Facebook and you can just, all those things. You can put all those things in the comments for everyone. I love it. I love it. thank you so much, Dr. Joanne, for being here today and sharing all of this with us. Like I said, if you read her bio, she has so much more to share. So we might have to do this again to go through some of those other areas as well.
Yeah.
Now, before we log off, where can people find you? What is the best way to get a hold of you, find you? Is it at a website, on Facebook? Where would that be at?
Yeah, so the best way would probably be email. And then I do have a website and Facebook. So email, it's Ask Dr. Joanne 2. So that is ASKDRJOANNE 2 at gmail.com.
Okay.
Then one of the websites is www.jflcounseling.org, all one word. And again, I'll drop that in as well.
Yes.
And then on Facebook, we are at JFL Counseling.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. And somebody else, as you're saying that, said, yep, drop it below. Drop it below.
Drop it below, right? Drop it.
They want to hear more and they want to have all those tips. I actually think I want to print those out and hang that on my fridge. I love those tips.
Yes.
That's what we need during this time. And we can't say it enough that you are not alone in this, right? There are resources. There is Dr. Joanne. There is organizations like NAMI, and we will drop some of those other resources below as well. We finish this up. So thank you, Dr. Joanne. I really appreciate you being here tonight. If anybody wants any other information about the On Air Advocate, you can head on over to onairadvocate.com and you will find all of our resources there. Or if you would like to join our private community, head up to the top of this Facebook page, hit the blue button, and that will let you into our private group. So until next time, thanks everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. Bye-bye, Dr. Joanne.
Okay, good.